Thank you for inviting for the conference. So far, all the papers were dedicated to visual artists, and now I will change the subject a little bit since my presentation, we don't know what the future will bring us, is dedicated to Jerzy Jurandot's comedy, Love Looking for Home. On October 29, 1941, Mary Burke, a 17-year-old living in the Warsaw Ghetto, noted in her diary, "Today I went with Romek to the opening of a play at the Femina Theater. The audience laughed heartily and spent a few pleasant hours in the comfortable theater, completely forgetting the dangers that lurk outside." The play Burke watched was a comedy in 3 acts, Love Looking for a Home, as you can see the poster from the play in the first slide. It was written by Jerzy Jurandot, one of the leaders of cabaret in pre-war Warsaw, as well as a prominent theater persona in the enclosed Jewish district. Today's presentation has its roots in my graduate project from the George Washington University I presented last year. And for this project, I aim to bring Love Looking for a Home to a wider audience as a telling example of artistic expression during the Holocaust, presenting the main motives of the play as a satirical response to life in the Warsaw Ghetto. To do so, I involve a local Washingtonian artist, Hilary Morrow, to arrange several scenes and songs from the play. When we think about Warsaw Ghetto, what comes to mind, our mind first, is usually hunger, poverty, death, omnipresent threat. And cultural life is not the most obvious aspect of life in the ghetto, yet it's an important and very complex one. Multiple cafes, restaurants, and theaters established in the district allowed ghetto inhabitants to keep their pre-war habits of the urban life, at least to some extent. Theaters in the Warsaw Ghetto were organized by the artist community almost from the beginning of district's existence. The first theater, El Dorado, was opened only 3 weeks after the ghetto was sealed off November 16, 1940. There were 6 venues in total operating in Polish and Yiddish until the Great Liquidation Action in July 1942. Theaters were inexpensive, a popular type of entertainment. Between December 1940 and July 1942, the ghetto theaters presented 68 premieres. New shows were staged every month. Spending a couple of hours in the theater was a form of temporary distraction from the reality of the ghetto, as noted by quoted Mary Burke. Theatrical life was also perceived as spiritual resistance against the Nazis and as support of artists who were sealed off in the district. Simultaneously participating in cultural life caused many tensions between ghetto inhabitants and led to discussion about the morality of entertainment. For some people, it was unacceptable to enjoy themselves due to dramatic conditions in the district. For instance, Professor Israel Gutman, who survived the Warsaw Ghetto, called ghetto theaters a scandal and compared attempting them to watching a film in the cemetery. And here's the very telling example, a picture from Yad Vashem, where we can see begging children. And behind them, there are several different posters from ghetto theaters, including Alleglach, dedicated to Rubinstein, the jester of the ghetto. Before the Second World War, Jerzy Jurandot, who by training was a chemist, contributed to such theaters and cabarets such as Cyrolik Warszawski and Małe Kwi Pro Quo. In the Warsaw Ghetto, he became the artistic director of the Melody Palace, moving to the newly opened Femina Theater in June 1941. The opening of this Polish-language venue was announced in Gazeta Żydowska, the only newspaper in the ghetto approved by the German authorities. And here are the pictures of the theater, the post-war and contemporary one. So according to Gazeta Żydowska, Jewish Warsaw has obtained another institution of high cultural significance. in the elegant, modern, and tastefully designed Femina at 35 Leszno Street, a new theater will be open in the very near future. The program in which the best Jewish talents will appear will be able to achieve a very high standard. This is guaranteed by first-rate writers, as well as acting aces. The theater auditorium itself is elegantly decorated. The acoustics are first-rate. Femina will offer suitable and civilized entertainment for all spheres of the public of the district. Yet Jurandot's memoir provides us with completely different information about conditions in the theater. In his words, with the first frost, the temperature in the auditorium dropped below zero. The audience sat in their coats and scarves. At the same time, the stage showed a garden full of sunshine with carbide lights, and the actors in their flimsy summer costumes had to stop their teeth chattering by sheer willpower. The theater has its principles, and illusion had to be maintained. The premiere of Love Looking for a Home took place in January 1942, actually not in October 41, as quoted Mary Burke noted. The manuscript of the play was preserved in the Ringelblum archive and is available in the Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw. Here's the first page of Jurandot's manuscript. This three-act comedy tells the story of two newlywed couples, Edmund and Ada, Marian and Stefcia, who by accident were quartered in the same room. The plot was built around their adventures and misunderstandings caused by sharing the space. Their initial dislike and arguments turned into mutual interest between the couples and eventually exchange of partners. The play was directed by Edmund Minowicz, who was also an actor and a singer, while the music was written by a composer, Iwo Wesby. The role of Stefcia was played by Stefania Grodzieńska, a popular actress as well as Jurandot's wife. And here there are Jurandot and Grodzieńska's pictures from their fake documents after they left the ghetto. Having outlined the background of Love Looking for a Home, I will now move towards the content of the play, reflecting life in the Warsaw Ghetto combined with Jurandot's satirical aptitude. I will start with lyrics of the first song from the play. Don't care if it's pokey or roomy, don't care if the view isn't ace, but it has to be, just for you and me. We have to have our own place. We don't need a bright, shiny floor or beveled glass panes in the door, but we need not to move every day. We need a place to stay. A table to chairs, a bed where we'll fit, a shelf for our pants, and a place for our kit. 'Cause it has to be, just for you and me. We have to have our own place. We don't know what the future will bring us. Come what may, we're not going to moan. We know what the most crucial thing is, our little home. The song sung by Edmund and Ada, the first couple that moved into the room in the shared apartment, reflects one of the biggest universal dreams of everyone, a home. The satire of housing conditions in the Sil district was Jurandot's main idea behind Love Looking for a Home. He was aware, however, that in the Warsaw Ghetto, this basic human need of safe accommodation was almost unattainable. Constant degradation of living conditions concerned everyone, not only the poverty. The humor in the play couldn't be too literal or crude. When the Warsaw Ghetto was sealed off, more than 400,000 people were crammed into exactly 1,483 tenement houses. But the apartment found in this district wasn't given once and for all. The boundaries of the ghetto were changed almost every month, so single streets or even buildings turned out to be on the Aryan side after the correction. This also concerned Jurandot personally, because his first apartment he got in the ghetto turned out to be outside of the district even before he moved in. So this meant a constant search for the apartment among inhabitants of the Warsaw Ghetto, pictured in Jurandot's play, pictured in the following group scene. So this is the room, sir. Please sign here that you've taken it. General consternation. Marian, but someone's living here. Excuse me, what's going on? Policeman, this gentleman has got an allocation from the housing department. What? Not this room, surely. Definitely this one. Clearly specified in the allocation. But we are living here. I can't help that. You can always make a complaint. Here, I'm leaving the allocation, sir. We can't throw him on the street. We could let him stay a few days until he finds something. A single man isn't going to take up much space. Stefcia from the hallway. Marian, come help me. I can't do this by myself. Marian gloomily. Let me present my wife. Although Love Looking for a Home was created as a comedy of errors, and two newlywed couples were located in the room by accident, presented situation wasn't unusual. From the beginning of the district's existence, its inhabitants had to deal with growing overpopulation. On average, 6 to 8 people lived in one room, but this number didn't fully reflect the housing conditions in the ghetto. Population was uneven. There were both bearable accommodation environments, as well as places of huge density of tenants, reflecting in the following dialogue. Have you put the note on the door? Of course, our surname and ring 8 times. 8 times? Certainly. I've got it off by heart. 1 ring Finkelstein, 2 rings the Goldbergs, 3 Mrs. Flexbaum, 4 rings Vesby, 5 the Spiro brothers, 6 the Weinberg girl, 7 the dentist can't remember his name, and 8 us. Sound of doorbell ringing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Weinberg girl. The doorbell system recalled in the play wasn't the author's idea, but a solution used by inhabitants of the ghetto. Jurandot explained it in his memoir. By the bell on each front door, there would be a piece of paper with a long list of names and instructions about how many times to ring for each one. It was quite funny, really, when anyone visited and dozen families would solemnly count the rings to see who it was for and who should answer the door. One of such lists was preserved in the Ringelblum archive. It has the name of Władysław Szlengel, one of the most important poets and creators of cultural life in the Warsaw Ghetto. Love Looking for a Home also pictures a subject of house owners, imaged by a character of the meddling landlady. Her officiousness embodies a real problem of many tenants squeezed into one apartment to the breaking point. And here's what she says. You can only come and boil water once every day. I can't be having you under my feet in the kitchen all the time. I got 5 rooms and 20 subtenants, and if every one of you wants a cuppa, I'll just go bonkers. And you can't do laundry at all. I don't want my floor getting wet. You can use the bathroom 10 minutes and no more. Some people, when they get in there, they stay in 4 hours. Same with the toilet, and no putting cigarettes ends down the wash basin. And anyway, keep the smoking down or the curtains will go yellow, and I'm not about to have them washed every other day. She starts to leave, turns back at the door. And mind you don't smash the statue. That was my husband's, that was. Another subject Jurandot ironically depicted in Love Looking for a Home was the issue of public transportation in the Warsaw Ghetto. The main protagonists of the play have an idea of going on their honeymoon trip that actually turns out to be only in their imagination. But yet, opportunities of traveling in the Warsaw Ghetto were limited yet possible. Climb on board on Salt Street, get a seat and you're a winner. Wait an hour because the engine has to eat its dinner. Finally, the whistle blows. You wave to people passing. Worth the wait, it's such a ride. It really makes your heart sink. Go slower, you're making me jumpy. Mommy, why is it so bumpy? Hold on to the rail and don't talk. Really, it's quicker to walk. Go fiery steeds on your way. Cars aren't as good as they say. Slowly, you don't want to topple us. Hooray for the omnibus. Omnibuses, or the horse-drawn trams, appeared in the district in the summer of 1941. They were called konhelerki after the names of their owners, Moritz Kohn and Zelig Heller. The wooden wagons were painted blue and yellow, and to many people they resembled circus wagons or gypsy caravans. Although the tickets were expensive, the omnibuses were always filled with passengers. Due to crowd in the wagons, many ghetto inhabitants used another nickname, cabin of the fleas, and apparently they were a great subject for joke for Jurandot. As the title of Jurandot's comedy indicates, another main leitmotif of the play is love. The plot was built around overblown love adventures of the two couples, but the author touched upon another essential human need of emotional closeness, which in the reality of the ghetto was even more emphasized. Oh, it's bad as bad can be, me without you and you without me. Everything loses its taste. Every day is a waste when you're not here. Life is empty and boring, can't seem to settle to anything. The empty days appear, then pointlessly disappear, but when you're here, what matters time? The world is new and gay. With you the sun starts to shine, lighting up the winter's day. Oh, it's bad as bad can be, me without you and you without me. Marek Edelman, one of the leaders of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, in the conversation with Hannah Kral shielding the flame, recalled that love was almost a necessity to face living conditions in the ghetto. People were afraid to be alone, especially during critical moments. In Edelman's words, to be with someone was the only way to survive in the ghetto. One would secret oneself somewhere with the other person, in a bed in a basement anywhere, and until the next action, one wasn't alone anymore. And here I would like to dedicate a couple of sentences to Jurandot and Grodzieńska as a couple. They met in the cabaret Cyrulik Warszawski in 1937. The year after, they got married. They moved together to the ghetto. They worked together there in the Femina Theater. And they both left the ghetto 3 weeks after the Great Liquidation Action started. They also both survived the war in hiding. After the war, they created the Syrena Theater in Warsaw, where Jurandot was, again, the artistic director, and she was an actress. Jurandot died in 1979, and Grodzieńska outlived him for approximately 30 years. The final subject I'm going to present today are the language issues stemming from the use of Polish and Yiddish in the Warsaw Ghetto. Many artists in the district, including Jurandot and Grodzieńska, represented assimilated intelligentsia contributing to Polish art and culture before the war. Jurandot solely wrote in Polish, so Love Looking for a Home, as his other plays and pieces, was written and staged in Polish, dedicated to the Polish-speaking audience. The issue of Yiddish is not a dominant motive in the comedy, but can be found here and there as subject of jokes. But also, it stemmed from the fact that Jurandot was aware of the existing conflict between Polish and Yiddish-speaking groups of artists. In March 1942, note against artists Diana Blumenfeld and Jonas Turkow, who actually contributed to Femina, was published. It also comes from the Ringelblum archive. And authors of this letter stated that Blumenfeld's and Turkow's involvement in the Femina was an express betrayal of the Yiddish language and cultural movement. Such conduct must be branded, whatever it is, by verdict of the Jewish society. In Love Looking for a Home, the only person who speaks Yiddish is Mr. Silverman from the House Committee. In the conversation with Stefcia, he mixes two languages, struggling to express himself in Polish. Even though Stefcia knows only a few random words in Yiddish, she convinces him that she's a fluent Yiddish speaker. Here's what she says. Git Shabbos amehaye metzie Schwarzesow, czulent mi w kiszkę meshugener mazeltov. And Mr. Silverman's response was, excellent, I've reached the conclusion that your Yiddish is no illusion. Now I'm afraid I must flight. Things to do, sei gesund, goodbye. Right before the premiere of Love Looking for a Home, Gazeta Żydowska announced it a sensation. A few days later, the newspaper mentioned that after the second act, the audience cheered the artist with warm ovation. Jurandot's idea for the play wasn't original. He based it on the popular pre-war comedy Squaring the Circle by Valentin Katayev, adjusting the plot to the realities of the Warsaw Ghetto. Jurandot's attempt to depict life behind the ghetto walls was successful yet very subtle. In the text, there are many allusions to where the plot takes place, but the word ghetto doesn't appear even once due to German censorship. The comedy wasn't just a temporary distraction from horror of the ghetto. In this three-act play, Jurandot managed to depict universal experiences of life in the Sildov district the audience could easily identify with. Most importantly, the author created a poignant example of artistic response towards oppression and annihilation, aiming to preserve human dignity during the Holocaust through humor and satire. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Hello. Do you have any practical information about these plays? Well, what was the price of the ticket and how they got everything that theater needs? Like, was there any costumes or some scenography or something like that?
So I don't have any specific information about this play, about Love Looking for a Home. The thing is that there was a big paradox in the Warsaw Ghetto. Tickets to theater were much cheaper than bread. Jurandot mentioned that they usually cost 2 złotych, while bread on the black market cost 13. So for some reason, it was cheaper to go to the theater that gets food from the black market. That was a huge paradox, but this is how it was in the ghetto. I can only guess how, or imagine how the scenery of this particular show looked like. I didn't find any pictures, but at the same time, there are pictures from other theaters. There's also a scene dedicated to theater, I think to Nowy Azazel, in the propaganda film that was shot in the Warsaw Ghetto in 1942. But what I can tell for sure that I wouldn't believe the description of the Femina theater I quoted from Gazeta Żydowska, because Jurandot already mentioned that it wasn't that wonderful, even though every poster usually underlined that there would be heating in the theater, there would be wonderful lights, etc., etc., etc. It was far from truth.
First of all, thank you for a marvelous presentation. My question is somehow related to the previous one. I see on the picture to the right mentioning about an artist whose name is Ivo Vesby, right, and who is mentioned as the author of actually the music.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I thought that this is the artist who did the scenery.
No, Ivo Vesby was a composer that worked in Femina with Jurandot. Unfortunately, I don't think the notes preserved. That's why when I asked Hilary last year to arrange a couple of songs from the play, she did her own interpretation. I wish we knew how the real music sound like, the original music from the show sound like, but I don't know.
And did you happen to find any information about possible artists who were connected to the theater?
About the artists?
Yes.
Any particular one or in general?
You know, what artists were probably connected to this play and, you know, to the scenery?
The article from Teatr i Muzyka about Love Looking for a Home, the one on the right, mentions Stefania Grodzieńska, Ada Połomska, Edmund Minowicz, Leon Rytowski. I assume they were actors connected to the main protagonist, since most of the names refer to also names of protagonists from the play. So Stefania Grodzieńska probably played Stefcia, Ada played Ada, Edmund Minowicz played Edmund. For some reason, I guess Leon Rytowski played Marian.
Thank you.
If I add something, I know that artists in the ghetto cooperated with theaters. And for example, Witold Levinson, I presented him during my lecture. He cooperated with one of theaters. I don't recall its name now, but you may find a lot of maybe not a lot of information, but some information connected with artists who cooperated with theaters. And
Yes.
According to my knowledge, Gela Eckstein also prepared costumes for Femina.
Oh, I didn't know about it. It's a very
Thank you.
good piece of information. Coming back to artists, I also mentioned Jonas Turkow and Diana Blumenfeld, who were one of the most important actors in the Warsaw Ghetto. And they were torn between Yiddish and Polish speaking theaters. And for some reason, they were condemned for this stretch between Polish and Yiddish.
I want to say that the problem of art and music and theater in the ghetto was very important, and Barbara Engelking write about it. For example, also in Femina Theater, Władysław Szpilman and Vera Gran, the most important and very, very serious problem of Warsaw Ghetto.
Yes, that's
because, you know, it was the problem of collaboration and the problem of Vera Gran, etc., etc. And if, because I can say today that that Marek Edelman was my friend, my very close friend, and he thought that he was so occupied by the problem of survival of politics, etc. And for him, the problem of music and theater was not very important, and he didn't know what was about the theater and music in the ghetto. It was I quoted the words of Marek Edelman. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the comments.